Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Alliance Guys podcast. I'm your host, Jay Callen. With me are my two compadres, my confidants, mis amigos, DKM, Jaden. Thank you for joining us. DKM, how are you this evening?
It's hump day. I'm good.
Oh yeah. Jaden, how are you?
Well, I used to think compadres meant I was a Mexican preacher, so I guess I'm all right since I'm not a Mexican preacher.
Yeah. Jesus. Literally.
Exactly.
Okay.
Preacher would love.
I'm going to have a sip of Coke on that already.
Yeah. Well, like
all right.
a line of Coke.
You're snorting Coke?
Exactly. So this is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the Alliance blog. And what we do, well, we talk NWA. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for 10 years. There's a lot of new guys out there, and I think you should try them all. But don't forget who was here first. So to start, say that again.
Sam Mushnick.
Well, yes, Sam Mushnick was here first.
People didn't know he had a podcast back in 1956.
Yes, but that was by telegram. It is. And he would say, new NWA World Champion, stop. So there's some 1950s humor there for you guys. All right, so what we're going to talk about, well, it was an effort, DCAM, which is more than I could say than what you're doing on the show.
Oh, wait.
I'm probably gonna edit all this shit out anyways. Let's be honest.
Maybe.
All right. So, episode 5 of NWA Power. All right, guys, do it.
Power.
Jaden, are you abstaining?
I think he went to sleep.
Can you hear me now?
Maybe his phone. Yeah, I can hear you now.
I can remember I can't let the phone go black or you can't hear me. Once it goes
do
black,
the power. Oh my god.
Power.
It kind of makes me want to do an Ultimate Warrior style promo and say, the gods above have given me the power.
Oh, please don't.
All right. So now that so let's talk NWA. Let's talk NWA Power. To kick the show off this week, there was an Eli Drake promo. The Master Manipulator at it again. DKM, what were your thoughts about Mr. Drake's? It wasn't actually a promo. It was more like a video package of him kind of pulling the strings, if you will, with the heavyweight division of the NWA.
It was a good package, and I think it helped develop the storyline that they're trying to tell, which they've needed. So I liked it. I thought it was a positive.
Jaden, your thoughts on the package on Eli Drake?
Well, apparently, whenever they show Eli's package, it gets a lot of positive press. So I guess they have to do more of more demonstrating of Eli's packages, and it'll be a lot better, I think. Honestly, though, the more Eli's talking, the better.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, he's a promo machine. This guy was meant to be in front of the microphone. I read recently where someone compared him to The Rock, and I'm like, that's not a bad thing, guys. That's a very good thing. And it kind of set up what the show is going to be. Next thing we get is Aaron Stevens out. The actor Aaron Stevens. The line I wrote down for my notes was, "Are you booing Shakespeare?" Again, with the silliness with Aaron Stevens. What did you guys think about this fella?
Well, you know what? He wasn't because again, he was the only one that was comedic this time. It kind of fit better. He wasn't drowned out by a bunch of stupidity. So I kind of like it. I actually thought I thought they started off with the Colt Cabana interview.
You know what? You are absolutely right. I must not have written that down. So yeah, you are correct. Pardon me, I was wrong. The Colt Cabana interview where he expressed that he belongs in the main event. That he feels like the national championship is rightfully his, and that James Storm got that belt in not in a less than proper means to get that title. Jaden, since you remember the interview, tell us about the interview.
Well, there I am, went black again. I remember he showed a lot of passion. He showed a lot of charisma. When Colt Cabana's not being silly, he's a real talent. He's a real asset. And I think maybe we need a little less of the silly, more of the serious Colt Boom Boom Cabana. And he could be a bigger asset to the NWA. It set up the main event, or what was promoted as the main event. And it made the championship that he was coveting seem important. So I think it did its job. DK?
Yeah, it was a good interview. I think he may have got a little bit stuck at the beginning because he kept saying he was a main eventer and he was going to be in the main event. He said like 2 or 3 times. It gave me a slight chuckle. But it was a strong, passionate interview, and he really talked the title up, and that's important.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we take for granted that is a secondary title, but the national title in its history has meant so much to the NWA. And think of the former champions who've held that belt, like Arn Anderson, not that particular belt, the other title belt, the other national title.
Like Tully Blanchard, like Dusty Rhodes, like Ron Garvin, like Buddy Landell. Can't remember which Buddy.
Has a lot of buddies.
So Damian Wayne, Chance Prophet, a lot of great NWA national champions.
Going back further, of course, there was Tommy Rich, Paul Orndorff, Buzz Sawyer, the Masked Superstar, Jack Briscoe.
So, as we just showed off, the lineage of the title has been very important. The way that the NWA, and I talked about this on the pre-party show the other day, the national title, the feud between Colt Cabana and James Storm has actually been pleasantly paying off. The feud started at the Crockett Cup when Colt Cabana unceremoniously sent Willie Mack packing. I mean, not only did he take his title, but then Willie Mack just left the NWA altogether. Then Colt...
Yeah, Colt was the one that made the impact there.
Yeah, legitimately just drove Willie Mack out of the NWA. And then, before Colt even has an opportunity to, say Mazel Tov or anything like that, you get James Storm in the ring, who's already challenging him for a match. And this was back at the Crockett Cup. And the exchange of words were there. They had a match at Ring of Honor. It was actually at the War of the Worlds, which New Japan participated in. And the match went to I believe it went to a draw, or Cabana won. I'm not exactly sure now. My memory's fuzzy. But then they had a rematch scheduled. Cabana got hurt. James Storm took advantage of that opportunity. It was on a dark show, so it really wasn't presented on the Ring of Honor television, but it was in front of the Ring of Honor crowd. James Storm wins the title. He has one defense, only one, and that was for an indie promotion out in Georgia, of all places. And the two reconvened in NWA in Atlanta at the Georgia Broadcasting Studios. Colt says he wants that title match back, and they built towards that match. And we have a new NWA National Champion. No surprise there, right, fellas?
Yeah, it's almost like I've seen it coming.
Taking away the idea of the thing being taped, it surprised me when it happened. I wasn't sure. I was a little bit surprised that they changed title back as quickly as they did. So it was surprises are good in wrestling sometimes, and we'll see where this leads.
Now, that makes Colt Cabana a 2-time NWA World Champion, a 2-time NWA National Champion. And, if he and Mr. Kennedy continue to, Mr. Anderson he, Mr. Anderson, continued to team together, maybe he might become the first Triple Crown of the Billy Corgan era of the NWA. Then we got the Retromania commercial. I know you guys aren't a fan of the Goofy, but what did you think of Nick Aldis? And these modern video games are too difficult.
Hey, I agree with him. I have a hard time with modern games. This is fine because it was, for my understanding, an actual product. I mean, this is something that's really happening, something you're really going to be able to get.
Yes.
And so I was perfectly fine with the commercial.
I've known some time about Retromania. I know the kind of through a mutual acquaintance, kind of know one of the programmers and one of the people behind it. And I know that there's even more that's coming with it. I love the fact that they're using the Power Studio, and Nick Aldis and Colt Cabana are going to be part of it, and so is Austin Idol. Maybe one of the arenas could be the Austin Idol Universal Academy. That'd be kind of cool.
Does that come with a kayfabe cocktail, or is that not an option?
Yeah, only when Bill Cosby's around, and just make sure that Epstein didn't commit suicide. But that's all.
Oh shit. So anyways, going on my Amazon wish list will be the NWA Retromania. It's said to be coming out in the first quarter of 2020. And I'm looking forward to playing it. And maybe I'll actually play it on the Twitch channel, and we could talk NWA while I'm playing as Nick Aldis conquering the Legion of Doom.
That'll be good. Animal Hawk versus that'll be great. Tommy Dreamer. I think he beat Tommy Dreamer before. Pretty much, I think everybody who's living, he's had some kind of association with in this game. So why not?
And the interesting thing about it is too, it's the game itself. It's not an NWA game. I don't want people to be confused. This has been in the works for quite a while, but it does feel like they're going to be putting a big chunk of NWA look and feel into it. And for me, that's awesome. I think that's great. I think I'm looking forward to it.
So next after this was the tag team match with the Dawsons versus Mims and somebody. I can't remember the other kid's name.
Kingsley.
Yeah.
And the crowd got behind Mims.
Well, it's good. Maybe they could pay his hospital bills.
Yeah, that's about all they got. The Outlaws would end up challenging Kingsley and Mims, but this is what we were talking about just the last podcast. What's that?
Redo that. Said the wrong name.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Let me start over. Yep. The Outlaws would come out to challenge the Dawsons for their number one contender spot at the tag team titles. But the geez, why am I having trouble talking right now? But the Dawsons actually got a victory over Kingsley and Mims, who I said, again, Mims looked pretty good in the ring. But this was a return to the squash match. We were talking about this last week, how one of the things we felt was hurting the NWA tag team division is those squash matches. These matches that make the Dawsons look very credible and very much a threat to the tag team champions, Latimer and Isaacs. Gentlemen, your thoughts on this match?
It was a good enhancement match. I mean, it served its purpose. The guys weren't skinny 150-pound people who naturally, if I tripped and fell, I'd pin them. They're they had fairly decent look. I don't know which one was which. The bigger guy was certainly got a little bit of offense in. But
that was Mims.
But, the Dawson steamrolled them like they should have.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think if there was more of this initially, maybe we'll buy into some of these tag teams a little bit more. they established their movesets, they established their personalities, they established their in-ring personas and what they can do. I also like the fact that they had a much better tag team finisher than that 69 belly bump that they were doing before.
Yeah, I think they used the double power bomb, right?
Yeah, kind of like an H-bomb in a way.
Yeah. So I think we all agree that was a good way to set up this the continuation of the feud between the Dawsons and the Outlaws. It certainly helped, in my opinion, to boost the Dawsons up a little bit. I still don't find them to be the best thing on the card. They're not my cup of tea, but I feel like more matches like this will certainly help their reputation. Next up was the return of, the in-ring debut of Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, let's hope there's no drums playing when we were trying to talk about her, but
they're coming. Dun,
yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
Well, that Thunder Rosa has a unique look. That whole Day of the Dead, Le Martes, whatever. I like the look. I like Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa comes across as a serious challenger. We were complaining about what would happen last week with Vox winning. Well, she took some of that momentum, and then it kind of further elevated Thunder Rosa by beating somebody who just came off a big win. So, and it also, in a way, kind of makes sense now because think about what's going on with what's her name? The girl with the big,
Marty Bell?
Awesome big hair. Marty Bell, yeah.
Marty Bell.
Marty Bell. She's upset about losing. She's upset about what Allison Kay said.
Allison.
And Allison Kay. I said that the second time. But she was upset about the Allison Kay said, and it kind of played in with the story on that one.
DK, your thoughts?
The match itself was exactly what it needed to be, which was, Thunder Rosa basically dominating Ashley Vox. I guess if I had any complaint about that was if we go back to last week and she just had this victory, then, again, it's kind of putting both Marty Bell and Vox in a lower spot. Well, at least Marty Bell was able to get some payback, but it did lead me to another issue that we're kind of having a little bit with the NWA, and that is who's the face, who's the heel, who am I supposed to cheer for, who am I supposed to boo? Because, Allison Kay had been the heelish one coming into this, putting down her opponents and you're not ready and you're not good enough and stuff like this. And yet, after she pinned Vox, Thunder Rosa attacked her more. Marty Bell comes out. And then they do the interview with Marty Bell where she's sitting there complaining about what Allison Kay has to say. Allison Kay comes out before she can get 3 words out. She's attacked by Thunder Rosa and then gives Marty Bell the chance to get a cheap shot in. Marty Bell gets the cheap shot in and rolls out. And, okay, they did a good job of advancing the storyline, but I don't know who I'm supposed to like.
Well,
because right now I don't like any of them.
I think that the attack itself was telling you, like, okay, so Allison Kay is the victim. She might be a little bit on the braggadocious side, but ultimately she wasn't attacking people outside of, being a savage and putting them down. But once she was attacked by Thunder Rosa, I mean, that kind of sealed the deal. And furthermore, just getting back to Thunder Rosa, this is exactly what the NWA Women's Division needed. This is exactly what I've been talking about for the last few weeks. Sitting there on the first night of the TV taping, watching the women's division, I was not impressed. In fact, I was disappointed. If I had a weak link for the NWA on night number 1 of those tapings, it was the women's wrestling division. I don't want any emails from Chicago. Night number 2, we get Thunder Rosa out, and I've been tweeting this, and as a joke, I've been putting the _ save us Thunder Rosa, because honestly, I know there's potential for that women's division, but it hadn't been even close to being actualized until Thunder Rosa stepped into that ring. She put on a hell of a match with Ashley Vox. Did Vox look bad in the loss? I mean, not really. Thunder Rosa just looked very dominant. And then the attack on the champion afterwards really sets up an angle. Well, now you've got Marty Bell, the best friend, who's now turned her back on Allison Kay. You've got Thunder Rosa, who's certainly he's got a bullseye, directed at Allison Kay. And Ashley Vox and all this is just kind of like a, we don't know what's going to happen with her. Is she going to help Allison in this feud? Is she going to, is she going to go lick her wounds? We don't know. But ultimately, I feel like that was a shot in the arm for the women's division for the NWA. And I really am looking forward to seeing what's next.
We did kind of skip over something real quick. We didn't mention the interview with Mr. Tim Storm, former NWA champion.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, well, my notes must have been a lot worse than I thought they were. Yeah, Clickbait Joe Galli attacking our friend Tim Storm. I thought Tim was going to cry. And that would have been a damn shame because everybody loves Tim Storm. And I didn't like the way Joe Galli was coming at him. Certainly wasn't befitting of an award-winning journalist, that's for sure. A bunch of clickbait making people cry. DKM, what did you think about that interview?
Is Joe Galli a heel? I mean,
we asked that question intentionally.
I don't. I mean, I think originally he wasn't supposed to be. I think the NWA may have been surprised that the fans stood up for Camille. Just based on a couple of tweets that were issued. Maybe that was always their plan. Maybe, I don't know. But, a couple of tweets were kind of like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so I kind of get the feeling that may not have been, I don't know if that was the original plan or not, but I like announcers to be announcers. I like interviewers to be interviewers. If you get a color guy in that happens to be a heel, I've never been the biggest fan of that. And this goes back to when Roddy Piper was on Georgia Championship Wrestling or Jesse Ventura or in WWE or whoever. I don't think the heel perspective needs to be there and justified or whatever. But in this particular case, I don't need an announcer or interviewer who's almost by his nature at healing the talent. Because, back in the day, if the announcer had healed the talent would have dropped them on their head.
NWA, I think you got a perfect angle right there. Drop Joe Galli on his head.
Well, yeah, I mean, the interview was what it was. Nick Aldis coming out and talking to him. I don't know. I could have done without it, I guess.
The thing I did like about it is, okay, you're just quoting what Aldis said. Hey, none of this happens without both of us. To a point, he is right. Okay, 10 pounds of gold was so popular initially because it focused on Tim Storm. And for whatever reason, for all the years that Tim Storm was wrestling in other promotions, for whatever reason, that spotlight of the 10 pounds of gold, that shine that belt gave him, it made him so likable. It made him extremely charismatic. He's a high school teacher. He's like your dad. You want to spend time with him. And I think that's what attracted a lot of people for that 10 pounds of gold initially. And the feud between him and Aldis kind of put them in that right position to carry that 10 pounds of gold into the first year that the Corgan and Lagana crusade for the NWA started. and the Aldous Crusade, obviously. But the significant part of this is, what is Tim Storm going to do next? And well, I know you guys are NWA historians. I know you guys know about the stables that have come through the NWA, but wasn't the Horseman kind of built on something similar, where you had the world champion kind of looking to solidify himself with very reputable wrestlers, some of the best wrestlers on the planet. There was a lot of respect that Tim Storm and Nick Aldis have for each other, that, over these battles, these, I guess, 4 matches over 2 years, they really accumulated a lot of respect for one another. And personally, what I see happening, and I could be crazy, and there's nothing, this is just Jason foreshadowing. This isn't anything that I've been privy to, but I think there's a stable coming. I think we're going to have a new version of the Horseman, maybe. And don't call it the Horseman, obviously, but something similar to that in nature. What do you guys think about that?
I kind of hope not. Honestly, not that. If all honesty, I think Storm is going to turn heel and do something to possibly earn another shot at the NWA World Championship. I don't believe his dreams are dead, and I think it will come around that he'll formulate a way to once again get that championship match.
I can see that happening. For those who don't know much about Tim Storm, here in Texas, he's been face, heel, tweener, you name it. And sometimes
what was his stable
in different promotions?
What was his stable with Matt Riviera, the Elite? What was that?
The Empire.
Do you guys remember? The Empire. Yeah, the Elite were those other guys. The Empire. And that was Matt Riviera, Tim Storm, and Scott Anthony?
Greg Anthony,
excuse me.
And there was a 4th member.
Okay.
I don't remember who right off the top of my head.
So, who knows? I mean, again, that was just my foreshadowing. I've heard other people kind of insinuate the same thing you gentlemen are insinuating, which is he could, blow our minds by going full heel. But we'll see. I mean, that's the thing about this show. There's so many roles are undefined that it's kind of hard to figure out who's who and what's what. But I'll tell you that there's going to be a lot of sad people if Tim Storm goes heel.
Yeah, like Mama Storm.
Mama Storm. And this is kind of like let me pull the window back a little bit. They're talking about trying to find someone for Mama Storm. So don't be surprised if Mama Storm appears in a future episode of the NWA, because I
hope they use the same actress that was Shelton Benjamin's mama.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Perfect casting.
Yes.
So next up, the advertised main event of the night, we were going to get Colt Boom Boom Cabana, the former NWA National Champion.
No, you're skipping something again.
My notes must be awful. What did I miss?
Ricky Starks. Well, first of all, they had the stupid promo with the question mark, which was probably the one major downward spiral of this program. Is who cares what the question mark is? Yeah, I see you crumbling up your notes. But then they had Ricky Starks and Aaron Stevens. 2 out of 3 falls.
That's right. That noise I was literally crumbling up my notes because they're garbage. I promise to do better next week, guys.
We expect better.
I actually enjoyed the Ricky Starks match with Aaron Stevens. I know they're going for this silliness. I mean, they put him in a near nude trunks for his match.
Talk about
with the ultra
out.
Oh, it happened more than one. When he came out, the crowd literally thought he was naked. I mean, we all gasped like, "Oh, gee, oh, okay, it's covered, but barely."
Well, because the first shot for us was from the back, and I'm like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, exactly. We were like that as well, and that was a bit much for my liking, but it kind of fit with the whole. I mean, he's definitely acting a little flamboyant, which kind of, I guess, plays well with the Stroke Daddy. Don't Google that, please. It was look,
the dogs didn't like it. Nobody seemed to like it.
Well, I mean, look, I like Ricky Starks, and I think the NWA is doing him perfectly because they're building him up. They're putting challenges in front of him, and he's beaten two times has he beaten Aaron Stevens. And that's two former WWE competitors that he's beaten, and he's looked really good in most of his matches. He had the great match with Caleb Conley to start the show off on the first week of television. To me, I mean, he's kind of forging his way as the MVP of the show. I mean, he's not a champion, but he certainly is starting to look good in the ring to me. And that quick victory against Aaron Stevens. And did you guys catch the part where he fell into the lap of the Tennessee Volunteer Santa Claus?
Yeah, but he didn't beat Ricky Starks beat Murdoch, not Caleb Conley.
Oh,
at least not yet. Who knows? Maybe you're.
Oh no, you're right.
Spoilers.
No, you're right. You're right. I scratch that. Never mind. I take it back.
Yes. Rewind.
That was Eli Drake who defeated Caleb Conley, not Ricky Starks. Okay, so.
Well, the interesting thing is that when you look at who Ricky Starks has beaten, and they're two older veterans, and neither one of them has wrestled in a little bit, but you can't argue their pedigrees. Both are former WWE champions in the tag teams division. I don't remember if Sandell ever held one of the singles titles or not. I'm sorry.
I don't believe he did.
I don't think so, but he was a tag team champion on more than one occasion. Trevor Murdoch was 3-time champion. So, I mean, these were guys that were upper mid-card. And there's no arguing that Aaron Stevens was very over in his Mizdow persona.
Right.
So, I mean, Ricky Starks is, they are building him correctly in my mind. I wouldn't want them to continue to do this for the next 10 years or even 4 weeks. But, they're getting somewhere. The thing is, I don't know what you do with Ricky Starks in the sense that he's a smaller guy. There's not really a title for him to be actively going for. They don't have a junior heavyweight title, and I'm fine with that because they don't really seem to have a lot of junior heavyweights. They got a lot of big guys. So, this is a battle of how do you use them? I mean, Jaden, what would you do? How would you use Ricky Starks?
Well, one of my problems with Ricky Starks right now is I still think he looks like Sebastian Cruz, so I keep seeing that when I look at him. Actually, if you ever watched Full House, there was this little nerdy kid who was friends with baby Michelle, and he kept saying, "You're weird," and he had this weird little haircut, and he was actually related to T.N. Tamara. He also kind of looked like him, so maybe that's him grown up. But he's got some talent. I think he could possibly challenge for the national championship. That could be something that might be down the line. Colt's not the biggest guy. He's actually probably the smallest heavyweight they have in the division. So, I can see him challenging for the national championship, and even maybe giving Nick Aldis a run for his money. And Nick Aldis seems to think he's a big-time player. Maybe it's time to put his money where his mouth is and see if he can handle the dealer, the national treasure.
Yeah, I mean, well, not all at once, gentlemen.
Go ahead, DK.
I was just saying, I don't know. You don't want to move him too fast.
No.
You don't want to. I mean, you start putting him in with people that are going to beat him. I don't think that's a good thing. On the other hand, he's got to move to a next level at some point here. maybe in the next set of tapings or something.
Or maybe he just needs a good person to feud with. So, not all feuds revolve around a title belt, and maybe just, I know he and Aaron Stevens aren't finished, but maybe that's what he needs is just a good feud to help kind of direct that character a little bit more.
Well, he probably needs somebody like Caleb Conway, or who's, I think they could put on a good thing. They could put on good matches where they could elevate each other and look good. Where who wins and who loses maybe at the end of the day isn't as important as how they look in the match. So somebody like that, I think, would be a good hookup for both of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that match, Conley and Ricky Starks. How about you, Jay?
I would love it. I'm a big fan of both those guys. We've been talking about Conley so much, and kind of forgot to mention that he was part of that New Year's Cup, or not New Year's, the New Year's pop-up event that they did with Tried and True Pro, and in fact, that's how the War Kings got their. They earned their spot in the Crockett Cup by beating Caleb Conley, and I want to say it was. Jay Bradley. I think it was Jay Bradley. But that's how they got into the Crockett Cup for the War Kings. And certainly, Caleb Conley is a guy that's been involved with the NWA through many iterations of the NWA. So I like the guy. I love to see him wrestle. I think him and Ricky Starks could certainly have a terrific match. Kind of like the match that we had for the advertised main event between Colt Boom Boom Cabana and James Storm. I think this was one of the best matches we've seen to date on the NWA Power show. Oddly enough, Eli Drake came out with James Storm again, being the puppet mastermind, making the puppet dance. And of course, Mr. Anderson accompanied Colt Boom Boom Cabana to the ring. Jaden, I want to hear your take, because I know that sometimes Cabana can come off as too funny for you, but in this match, he seemed pretty much serious the entire time. What were your thoughts on the match?
It felt like he had a championship that he wanted to win, and that championship was important to him, and that he would do anything he can, put the histrionics behind him to win that championship and avenge that controversial loss to James Storm, and maybe even earn himself a future NWA World Heavyweight Championship match in the process, since the national champion is the natural number one contender.
Again, going back to even like last week's, it was really good television main event. It was good back and forth. There were long periods of either one of them dominating. They both made it seem like, they were truly in it to win it, that title meant something. I wasn't 100% thrilled with some of the camera work at the very end, because I kind of missed what was going on just before he actually got the pin. So, the next thing I knew, Colt Cabana had done that, what'd you call it, Superman dive?
Yeah. And
was pinning James Storm. And I don't know how that was set up or anything. And I'll admit I didn't go back and watch it, but it was just kind of, there was the distraction on the floor between Eli Drake and Mr. Anderson and Camille, who we don't know why she was out there. Who's the real puppet master? Could Aldous be the real puppet master here? Why is Camille out there? Why she shoved Eli Drake? Why did she stare down Anderson and then leave after the pinfall? I mean,
yeah, I'm wondering that, kind of curious too. Like, what is exactly going on with Camille? I know back in the heyday. Yeah, don't ask Joe Galli. I know back in the heyday of the NWA, everybody was kind of feuding with everybody, and They had matches that can go on at any time, so they can go right. The Midnight Express were feuding with the Rock and Roll Express. They were feuding with the Lightning Express. They were feuding with Dusty and Magnum. They were feuding with the Road Warriors. They were feuding with Ron Garvin and Wahoo McDaniels. You know, they had feuds going on with a little bit of anybody. So they're at any time there could be any. Yeah, even feud. Well, that was later, a different version of the Midnight Express, but. Yeah, they can go on with feud with just about anybody at the time, and you know that's the way the NWA worked. Everybody kind of had multiple feuds going on, and even the feuds that weren't currently going on, they were always in somebody's back of somebody's mind, so they could bring back at any time. But they were still well-defined faces and heels, and I don't feel that it works so well because there's not well-defined faces and heels, so it's more confusing than. Everybody hates everybody, and you know everybody has something against each other. It's more of like I don't have a clue what's going on or why these people are doing what they're doing. Jay?
Yeah. Well, see, and I see things a little bit differently. I kind of agree with you. Who is manipulating who? You know, you said is Aldous being the manipulator. How do we know Camille isn't the one being the manipulator? Maybe Camille is pulling Aldous' strings. We don't really know. I mean, I know he's a married man, but things happen.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right. So we don't know. And I think that's part of the joy of the show, because don't give me everything at once. If I digest it all now, I'm not going to want to come back later for dessert. Give me a little bit. Let me eat it. Let me build up on it. Okay. Then parse out my meal for me, please. You parse it out for me so that I can have a little bit now and a little bit later, because I'll keep coming back for more if I don't eat too much all at once. And that's how I feel they're doing it, which I think is good storytelling. I think it's good for the NWA. It's going to keep people coming back week after week. You know, we were talking about the numbers offline, DKM and myself. We were talking about how the show's success, you know, that first week, they had almost 500,000 people watch. Now that was almost a month. That was a month ago. So now a month later, I believe prior to the show starting, they were somewhere about I want to say 76,000 people have watched this week's episode. So in one day they've got 76,000 views. While the show is going on, I've been tracking the views week after week, and the numbers were pretty consistent from episode 4 to this week's episode 5. And especially when you get to that main event, all of a sudden you get 10,000 people watching the show. That leads me to believe that maybe some people are just getting in late. Some people are checking it out when they can get into it. But week after week, you've got about 10,000 people live watching the NWA, watching that main event. And I think that says something about the brand and how it's growing. So the story, the devices that they're using to tell stories, I think are somewhat working, because week after week, we're still getting people coming to the show. So that match ends, and then we get those damn dirty Dawsons running to the microphone saying they'll take that match, which is odd because I thought they were going to think about it, and it took them, 45 minutes to think about it. They get out there, and we get Outlaws Inc. We get Homicide and sorry, I have to do that once a week. We get Eddie Kingston, and this might be the best the Dawsons actually looked to me, guys. What did you think about the impromptu secondary main event?
I had mixed feelings when it came to it. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good match. I do think it highlighted the Dawsons. Wasn't wild about the finish, and wasn't wild that the Dawsons lost, because then it was almost like everything that was done at the beginning of the show with them was undone at the end of the show with them.
Right.
Okay, you just put them over as these bulldozers. They start the match and they're dominating. And then, you can kind of say it wasn't necessarily their fault, but Wildcard comes out to interfere what looks like to be on their behalf. Although I don't know if the Dolphins had anything to do with it.
Dawsons.
Sorry. Dalton Creek. I don't know.
You called them the Beltons in the last podcast.
At least I didn't call them the Darlings.
Okay, fair enough.
But anyway, my point's still the same. Whatever I call them and whatever their names really are, my point's still the same. They took a loss probably when they didn't need to take a loss, when it wasn't necessarily necessary for them to take a loss. That would have been a good double count out, a no contest, a throw the match out type of situation where nobody gets hurt, and, as far as the storyline's concerned. So, match good, ending bad. Jaden?
Well, I love the pop of the Rock and Roll Express when they came out. They evened the odds. It did seem pretty obvious that the wild card didn't want to face Kingston and Homicide, so they thought maybe the Dawsons, being lesser and well-known, may have been an easier time for them, maybe the lesser experience of the group. So maybe they thought they would have a better shot defending against the Dawsons. And then the Rock and Roll Express come out, and the fans absolutely love it. What I know about Homicide in Kingston, they probably should have attacked the Rock and Rolls too, just because that would fit their MO. But then again, we know that goes with the whole thing. We don't know who the faces and heels. At least we know the Rock and Rolls are definitely faces. But I'm just worried. I really am that they're building to a 4-way match for the NWA Championship. And I'm not a big fan of multi-person matches for a championship. I know sometimes it has to be done, and sometimes organically it happens and it kind of makes sense, but I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should put, a bunch of guys in the ring to decide a title and then, bring out another wrestler during the main event to. Anyway, that's another story altogether. But yes, the multi-man tag team matches, I agree with you, Jaden. I don't think that's a good idea. We all know what this leads to. Yes, Ricky Morton. Yes, Robert Gibson popped that Atlanta crowd. We knew that they were going to be there. It was advertised, but the crowd went absolutely nuts for it. And I can't take credit for it. This was on the This is the NWA podcast, which is with Adam Rotella and Gary Holm. And I don't remember which one said it, but I think it might have been Gary. He's saying the look on Eddie Kingston's face, sitting there holding the hands of the Rock and Roll Express, it almost felt like it might have been a childlike experience for Eddie Kingston to be there with maybe a tag team he might have idolized growing up. What do you guys think about that? The idea that maybe Kingston was happy to see the Rock and Roll Express because he grew up watching them on TV.
Well, the Rock and Roll, other than the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll probably got the biggest pop out of any babyface tag team in the NWA history. In reality, they probably got equal pops. It's just the Rock and Rolls were a little higher pitched than the Road Warriors was. But, and the charisma's still there. We joked around with it, but at what are they, like 60-something years old? And the Rock and Roll
61
Express,
and 63.
Yes, the Rock and Roll Express are still in 2019 are the hottest tag team in professional wrestling. So even if moron promoters do use them wrong, but still, it's great to see them. I guess they still have something. They still have that innate ability to connect to that crowd, and that's something that a lot of modern wrestlers don't have.
This is true.
Well, they can go. I mean, they're good professional wrestlers. They don't do they know how much you do. They know how to speed up, slow down. They know how to wrestle. And, they've been the underdogs their entire career.
Right.
I mean, they've beaten teams like Ivan Koloff and Keita Koloff and, other bigger, badder teams. They've been the underdogs their entire life. But so at 60, why, what's different? They're still the underdogs, and they still know how to work the crowd, and the crowd loves them. And I mean, the teeny boppers probably still love them for all I know.
Reminds them of their great grandpas.
Yeah. Jim Cornette tells a story about how he was the only heel that got a lot of mail back in the, mid 80s from, Crockett Promotions. And it was all hate mail. And they all hated him because, of course, of how they treated the Rock and Roll Express.
Sure.
So they were so popular, they generated a lot of fan mail for Jim Cornette, so they could tell him how much they hated him. And it's amazing to see them. It's amazing to think that they win the titles. Again, probably we all know this isn't going to be long term. I hope they play it smart with them. I hope Jaden's wrong that they're heading towards a multi-team match. I don't know. I suppose we'll find out when they start announcing pay-per-view matches.
Well, so here's an inside scoop, guys. They are doing a benefit show, they being the Rock and Roll Express, for Bobby Eaton on that same day as the pay-per-view. Now, can they jump in an airplane and fly from one show to the next? Sure. But is that sound likely? Not really. I mean, this isn't the old days where Crockett had a helicopter to fly him from here to there. So
where they're doing the show and to the Atlanta taping is actually almost equal to the distance of where they would be doing the shows in the 1980s and the Atlanta TV station. So it's very possible if they get out early enough, they can drive.
Well, and again,
way, don't tell Bobby Eaton about that show. He's not allowed to know about it.
I don't think he has the YouTube.
That's why you make sure you don't tell him.
Say that again, DK?
I don't think he has a computer.
He might not. So there's a good possibility that the Rock and Roll Express might not even be at the pay-per-view, but I'm certain they'll be there the following 2 nights in Atlanta at the Georgia Broadcasting Studios. So we'll see. But ultimately, guys, the survey that I took kind of listening to this conversation, I feel like we were all more positive about this week's episode than we were last week's. Yeah.
It's the best episode since the first one. A few minor things here and there that, we really didn't need any question marks. Leave the marks for the crowd so they can clap at everything. But it's a much better show. It was very good. Had me excited. I always kind of look forward to the NWA and always feel bad that if, when I don't like something and I'm always opinionated, and I know it shocks some people, but I don't know. It's so much better than everything they've done the last 2 weeks. I still think the first episode was slightly better, but it was very, very close second in my opinion.
I'm going to disagree with Jaden. I thought this one was better than the first one. It didn't have silly commercials. It didn't have, a Josephus match. There are still some things that need to be worked out. I mean, I understand what you're talking about earlier about, spreading out the meal. You just got to be careful when you're doing stuff like that, because you can also fill up halfway through and then get up and leave the table.
Right.
So, they're the only wrestling show that I truly enjoy watching. And I only watched about 2.5.
High praise from Caesar.
Yeah. So, they're good. Don't misunderstand our critiques for criticisms. They're good. We just want to see them succeed.
I agree with both you guys. I thought the show was great. I don't know if I liked it more than the first one, but I certainly felt really good in the audience that night. And I believe I messaged you both this from the studios, like, oh, night number 2, they found their groove. and I believe the show continues to go from here. Now, like you said, there's going to be quips and critiques that we have, but ultimately, I think the show is by far one of my favorite things about Tuesdays. In fact, probably the only favorite thing about Tuesdays. So I look forward to it next week. NWA Power and Jaden.
Power.
Thank you. And I think that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. This might have been the best podcast we've ever done because we didn't drop it at least once, not once.
Don't jinx us. Yeah, real quick, before we go, I got to say, I hate Josephus. If you're a fan of Josephus, go pee on an electric fence. And he still sucks. And if you think he's great, then I wonder if you live near power lines or maybe, a long time ago, I found out that the United States government used to inject radioactive isotopes into pregnant women to see what happens to the babies. I think those babies became fans of Josephus.
All right.
I had to get that in, that's I can't even say it's my gimmick because that's 100% real, but
I can't disagree with him. I don't know that I would have made an effort to said it, but I can't disagree with him. I will say one thing that I really did enjoy. It was a little bit inconsistent, but I really did enjoy, and that is that obviously this came from the second night of tapings because Dave Marquez had his sheet on there where he was able to give weights in hometowns and, proper introductions instead of this is Bob and this is Joe.
Sure. Okay, that's fair.
You know what? We're not like people that are going to backtrack. Go ahead, DK. I'm sorry.
I said I noticed they didn't give the weights for the girls.
Yeah, well, who would ask them, right? But
me.
We're not going to be somebody to backtrack. I actually like David Marquez in his role. His interaction's different depending on who he's in there with. He's almost Bobby Heenan-esque somewhat when he's in there with Aaron Stevens. But, I do like him in the role. Some people said he's not exciting enough. Maybe he could bring it up a tad. It wouldn't probably hurt, but I do like everything that he does. I like Jim Cornette. I think, since where I'm talking about it, I think the NWAs are kind of pussies about what they did with Jim Cornette is where he's been talked to and everything else. That's so bullshit. Such bullshit. It really is. Grow a fucking sack. God damn it.
Somehow this part of the show this show got edited somehow. I don't know what happened.
Don't edit it. Come on. It's true though.
Jim Cornette talked about it on his last podcast. I guess the only thing I didn't like was apparently they hadn't actually listened to it. They basically he basically said Lagana called him and go, "Did you do this? No. Did you say this? No." Because you can't make fun of, I understand, didn't do it, and everything. It's like, and then they had to issue a statement.
Yeah, I know. Grow a damn sack. The people that aren't going to watch because of Jim Cornette, chances weren't going to watch the fuck anyway. So, you know what? Screw them.
Well, let me make this point real quick because I'm usually on the other side. James Cornette. Yeah, James Cornette can be abrasive, right? James Cornette is who he is. The NWA knew who he was when they hired him. They knew what he was about when they hired him, and they didn't care. So the fact that they sent out the letter, I get it because, look, man, this is still a game. You still have to play politics. What Cornette said wasn't all that bad. He said so much worse in the past. This was tame by comparison.
He said,
but they have
that show.
Yeah, right. But I get why they have to do what they have to do. But in the meantime, the fans of the NWA, for the most part, they love James Cornette. Yeah. For the most part, they love the guy. It's the same audience. And I think it's foolish to think that he could say something that's going to offend the main NWA fan base. Now, there are fringe people who are watching the show, checking it out, that might be turned off by Cornette. But again, that's not your diehards. That's not your fan base. That's just a few guys here, a few guys there. I heard what was said. It wasn't as egregious as it was made out to be. I certainly, especially when it comes to suicide, it hasn't affected me personally, but I know people who it has, and I really think that is a very touchy subject that should be treaded lightly. I don't think Cornette went there. I don't think he did anything wrong. I'm not backpedaling, and I'm not sticking up for Cornette because he could do that himself. But I think there was a lot of social justice outrage that wasn't necessary. I think if anyone heard what he actually said, they would walk it back. But, Cornette is one of these guys that has a bullseye on him because people just don't want to like him. Because he has different views and different opinions, and he's unapologetic about that. And that's always going to cause, some division amongst wrestling fans. But again, I say it week after week, wrestling is the ultimate Baskin Robbins. There's 31 different flavors or more. You can find something that you like without taking away from something that I like. We can all enjoy our own flavors. There's so much offerings right now. There's over 30 hours of wrestling on television or YouTube or some sort of streaming device every week. You don't need to get stuck on one flavor. If you don't like it, feel free to try others.
Yeah, but unfortunately, some of those flavors are in one cup that two girls like to enjoy. That's my opinion with some of those flavors are.
Jaden, you got to take it down a notch, buddy. I got to be able to put this up on the show.
Told you I'm not being nice anymore.
Nice is one thing, but being salty is another. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Alliance Guys podcast. We made it through the entire episode. There will be very little editing, just the last line, maybe. But guys, thanks again for joining us. If you enjoyed what I did last week, the pre-party before, tune in next week. I'm going to try to do it again. We'll see if this becomes a thing for us at the Alliance Guys, the Alliance podcast, the Alliance blog. So if you like what you saw, tune in, tell a friend, share it on social media. And, of course, if you're watching this right now, give us a like button if you like it, and hit subscribe. That would be awesome. And until next time, DKM, you can follow him on Twitter at
DKMFWTX.
And Jaden, I know you're not on social media. You're too vain for that. But I know a company you work for does have social media. Why don't you plug that their Twitter real quick?
Well, hopefully I don't get fired. I hope Dr. Lawrence Ocanium doesn't put out a press release saying
he might.
That Jaden's views aren't necessarily his, But it's dogprowrestling.com is the website, DAWG. It's dog_unleash is the Twitter. It's Dog Wrestling is the Twitter. Dog_unleashed is the Instagram, and Facebook.com/dog wrestling. I think that's all of them.
And again, you can follow this show and all the other offerings at the Alliance blog, and that's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and we even have a Tumblr account. But that one is like the allianceblog.tumblr.com or something like that. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for checking us out, and I'll see you at the matches.